All right, American history students, welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 2, the Spanish American War. This will be similar how yesterday worked with making sure you're watching through the PowerPoint, make sure you're answering the questions correctly, and away we go. So, over the Spanish American War, again, you're going to see imperialism poke its head in here again, talking about how the United States is trying to take over other parts of the world officially for this time. And you're going to see it. This is all because of the effects of the Spanish American War. So that would be the effects that you're going to be trying to gear towards. So be listening for effects of the Spanish American War during this lesson. So again, it all comes back to imperialism, and that's what the main goal of it is. So you'll see the refresher of all this is going to be mainly revolving around how Europe is different countries in Europe are taking all over different parts of the world. Remember, Great Britain's leading the charge. Japan is also involved. And the reason why they're doing it is for the economic reasons. You could also go into the political reasons of having different bases, but it's mostly with economics. So with that, you're going to see the really big push on navies to be building different boats and establishing bases around the world. So you're going to see that need for raw materials is going to come pretty easily for a lot of countries. So where you're going to see the United States finally start dipping their foot into the imperial pool is when we are starting to look at a close neighbor of Cuba. Now we have a large plantation there from a different privately owned citizens. So there's a major problem though. Spain has control of Cuba at the time, and they actually have control of the Philippines, an island of Guam, which is in the Pacific Islands, parts of Africa, and then Puerto Rico, which is in the Atlantic side. So when we try to approach Spain and say, hey, Spain, we will buy Cuba off of you, they said, we'd rather see it sunk into the ocean. So naturally, we were like, what the crap? So there's going to be tensions with us and Spain building. So where you see we're going to start going into the humanitarian side is when we notice how Spain is treating the people on Cuba, which is pretty much like slavery at this time. So you're going to see that we're going to poke our head in and we're going to try to encourage the Cubans to have a rebellion. Not once, but twice. And both times miserably failed. So once that inhumane treatment is going to be come to light here in the United States, you're going to notice that public opinion is going to now start to separate. Should we help them? Should we not help them? Okay, there's goods and bads with everything. So when you notice that Cuba is a want of ours, okay, but this question is asking for why did the United States want control over Cuba? So click what you think the best response is. So, how this is all going to get to war is you're going to notice that because of those prior tensions, and when this letter is going to pop up, where a Spanish ambassador, should say ambassador, not minister, is going to start to newly criticize our newly elected in president, and his name is William McKinley. So you're going to notice that he is going to be attacked, and he's going to be called weak by the Spanish. So naturally, he's going to be kind of honked off by this. So he is going to send our brand new battleship down to Cuba, which is controlled by Spain, and say, how about you just hang out for a little bit and see what's going on? But a lot of people didn't want to really know what his real motive was. So you can see the list of things here about basically trying to help out American citizens that were down there to protect all the sugar plantations that we had. Some people thought that he was trying to prepare them for war, or maybe being preparing ourselves for war, or he just wanted to show Spain, like, hey, you don't want to mess with us. We got a whole new fleet of battleships just like this one that are on their way. So when this all starts to really start to blow up is when the Maine blows up. So we immediately go to the side of Spain did it, and because of our prior tension with them. So we see this as an act of war, and we immediately declare war on Spain. So here's the question to now ask yourself. Why did the United States declare war on Spain? So the happenings of the Spanish-American War are actually fairly quick. Now it makes sense for us to start storming into Cuba since we wanted control of it, But really, we wanted to just show Spain a lesson. So what did we do? We went to the Philippines because that's where a large portion of their navy was, their army was, and we just absolutely bombarded it with our brand new battleships. And when it came to actually fighting on the land, we had to get a little help from a Filipino national. His name is Emilio Aguinaldo, who's kind of like our George Washington, born on the island, wanted independence, wanted freedom for his country. So when we went to him, we said, "Hey, will you help us out? Kick Spain out of your land?" He was all about it. So fast forward a couple of days, weeks later, Spain is eventually defeated on the Philippines. So now our attention went to the Caribbean, where Cuba was. So therefore, our Navy already did its job. Now our Army needs to step up. But the major problem is our Army was not very good. Okay. After the Civil War happened, which in this time is about 30 years beforehand, we completely disbanded our Army. And a lot of our officers were once soldiers during the Civil War. So we had to really fast track our Army's training and so on and so forth. So we needed all the help that we could get. So who stepped up? Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Teddy Roosevelt. He recruited a bunch of polo players. He recruited a bunch of cavalrymen. He recruited ex-cowboys. And what his main goal was is to get people that were good on a horse. So then that way he could basically have like a lightning war in himself. Okay. When you move quickly in war, that's a very dangerous thing. So this group of people that he came up with is called the Rough Riders. Now, this was a very small group. However, they did big, big things, and they actually won some of the major battles of the Spanish-American War. And the war on Cuba did not last very long. And you're going to notice that the Spanish-American War, we had some help. So I talked about some different people that helped us. Who helped us win the Spanish-American War? The end effects of war are they go very quickly. Our president, William McKinley, works with other countries to try to make sure that the terms of peace are fair for both sides. And you're going to notice that once we kind of take the Spanish forces down on Cuba, we then focus on the Puerto Rico, and the same result happens. We eventually take it over. And fighting from start to finish basically lasted about 15 weeks. Now, where towards the tail end of that 15 weeks, you're going to see an armistice declared, which is the Treaty of Paris. This is a different Treaty of Paris from early American Revolution, if you are pretty fluent in that. But in this declaration, or sorry, this armistice or this treaty, we're going to get some major things. We are going to get control of land. Ironically, not Cuba. However, we get control of that island of Guam I mentioned earlier, Puerto Rico, and they are still under our control or protectorate in 2022. The Philippines also becomes ours, but we bought them. We gave Spain $20 million and said, "Hey, thank you. Here you go. Sorry about your loss." Where this all starts to get a little sketchy is that once our role in the Philippines is established, we weren't treating the people of the Philippines any better, which eventually leads to another war. But you could also see the effects of the soldiers from fighting in the Spanish-American War. Notice how many were killed in war and how many died because of the tropical diseases and what they were facing during the time. Malaria is a big killer. So to end today's lesson, what were the effects of the Spanish-American War? So take a look at the list, select your best option.